If the day started at the SCO Forum looking like it would be a non-eventful, perhaps largely polite and convivial day, well, it certainly did not end that way. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. First, terrible news coming from Rajouri in Jammu, where 5 soldiers have lost their lives in the line of duty. The army says that this was a counter-terror operation and the terrorists triggered an explosive device. This on a day when Foreign Minister Jaishankar has called out terrorism in his opening address at the SCO Forum. But if all eyes were on how Pakistan's Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto, the first foreign minister to be in India after a gap of 12 years, would react, well, his speech was combative, it was provocative, it spoke about Kashmir without using the Kashmir word, it's made references to hate, quote unquote, it made references to fascism, quote unquote, and it also referenced the UN Security Council resolutions. If that were not provocative enough, Mr. Bhutto has ended the day addressing a press conference while still on Indian soil to the accompanying Pakistani media. And in that press conference, he has made comments that are extremely coarse in language at one particular moment in the context of the G20 meet being held in Srinagar. Mr. Bhutto says, and I quote, "वक्त आने पर जवाब देंगे, ऐसा जवाब देंगे कि उनको याद रहेगा." As I said, for those who believe that perhaps vanilla, bland, non-eventful, polite would be something that defined Mr. Bhutto's visit to India, that he would duck questions, saying that he was here at a multilateral forum, that did not happen at all. How might India react? Mr. Jaishankar is scheduled to address the press in about half an hour from now. We'll cut across live, but in the meantime, let's introduce our distinguished guests as we look at this rather familiar day, in fact, almost a sense of deja vu when it comes to India and Pakistan. Dr. Aisa Siddiqa, one of Pakistan's foremost strategic affairs analysts, is with us. Aisha, always good to see you. Also joining us is military veteran General Sharma, who is, of course, someone who has occupied at the front line several positions and combated terrorism firsthand. Ambassador Sinha, if we can bring him into the box now. Ambassador Sinha was one of those who actually said that the SCO has outlived its utility. Amitabh Mattu, Professor Amitabh Mattu is, of course, one of our best-known security affairs experts. Let me start actually by flagging what Foreign Minister Jaishankar said about terrorism in his opening address. Listen in.
Excellencies, while the world was engaged in facing COVID and its consequences, the menace of terrorism continues unabated. Taking our eyes off this menace would be detrimental to our security interests. We firmly believe that there can be no justification for terrorism, and it must be stopped in all its forms and manifestations, including cross-border terrorism. The channel of finances for terrorist activities must be seized and blocked without distinction. Members need not be reminded that combating terrorism is one of the original mandates of the SCO.
And he says this on a day when terrorists have triggered an explosive device in which 5 Indian soldiers have lost their lives in the line of duty. I want to play out also for you and our audience what Mr. Bhutto then said on terrorism in his address at the SCO Forum. Listen.
Terrorism continues to threaten global security. Let's not get caught up in weaponizing terrorism for diplomatic point scoring. When I speak on this topic, I do so not only as the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, whose people have suffered the most in terms of number of attacks and number of casualties. I also speak as the son of a mother who was assassinated at the hands of terrorists. I feel the pain of this loss, empathize with the victims across the world in a way that most cannot. I and my country are firmly committed to eradicating this menace. This requires not only a comprehensive approach, but also a collective approach. It demands we address the root causes as well as the threats posed by specific groups. It requires that we let this challenge unite us to fight it rather than divide us to become its victims.
Okay, before I open this for your first comments, I must actually say that if the references were veiled in his address to the SCO Forum, they were absolutely provocative and direct, as expected when he was addressing the Pakistani media. In that press exchange, this was not open to the Indian media, he was asked about the G20 meet having been held in Srinagar. And now remember, Mr. Bhutto used extremely coarse words to describe Prime Minister Modi. Some of that coarseness of language surfaced in this response that I'm just going to play out for you. Listen in.
Monafan independent होते G20 में सियाहत का इजलास होने जा रहा है श्रीनगर में 22 को तो आपको क्या लगता है कि आप समझते हैं कि ये जो इजलास होने जा रहा है ये G20 की तरफ से इन्वेस्टमेंट है इन्वेस्टमेंट है कश्मीर की
नहीं आप एक ऑब्वियसली हमारा हम इस चीज़ को मज़ाहमत करते हैं और वक्त पे एक ऐसा जवाब देंगे कि हमको याद रहेगा मगर इसका ये करना ही इनका पैचीनेस को दिखाता है it is a show of their arrogance to the world. Okay, to hell with international law, to hell with United Nations Security Council resolutions, to hell with any bilateral agreement. India will hold their events in Kashmir. What they'll find is they will be unable to achieve 110% attendance because other people will not compromise on their morals.
वक्त पर ऐसा जवाब देंगे कि उनको याद रहेगा. अमिताभ, when we were speaking earlier, you were optimistic. It's kind of gone exactly the way that someone like me had feared it would go. And the way the day has ended, this kind of coarseness of language, this kind of threat-bazi, hum unko jawab denge, ye arrogant hai, hum inko dikha denge, sikha denge, the rest of the world will not compromise on morals. Of course, he's addressing a Pakistani domestic audience. He's doing it while he's still in India. This isn't going to go down well. Amitabh.
Not at all. In fact, I had always assumed that he was going to be impetuous, immature. He's turned out to be irrational and ignorant as well. But I had hoped that Christchurch and his Oxford training might have perhaps blunted his edges. But Aisha disagreed with me. He's just playing to a domestic audience. The very fact that even at the press conference, he did not allow Indian media person to attend there, except for giving selectively interviews to, I think, a couple of Indian journalists. I think it just shows a height of immaturity. Frankly, it also shows a lack of confidence as far as Bilawal goes, that he's doing it in Indian soil, in Goa. He needn't have come here. He could have done it virtually. And he talks about unilateral violation of international law. If you look at the history of Jammu and Kashmir, India-Pakistan relations, Pakistan has unilaterally, right from the day go, they violated the standstill agreement that they signed with the Maharaja by sending in tribal invaders, which were really the Pakistani army. They violated, again, in 1965, the ceasefire line by sending in infiltrators through Operation Gibraltar. Then in 72, his grandfather, by all accounts, including by accounts or by Pakistanis, had agreed to the LC being the international border to Indira Gandhi, but said that he needed time to prepare. After this, I really find it extremely difficult that there will be any possibility of New Delhi doing business with Bilawal. I think it's right that the people that you need to do business with is the Pakistani army. It's a shame because Pakistan pretends to be a democracy, but clearly the Pakistan army, the ISI, which perhaps is confronted with a greater danger, recognizes how important it is to make peace. At least that was what Bajwa in his talks with Mr. Dowell seemed to indicate. But Bilawal is really, it turned out to be a teenager. Frankly, I can't believe that the Pakistani establishment seems to invest in these young teenagers who don't have the experience or the understanding or indeed the statesmanship. Last time they appointed a national security advisor, someone who I knew, who Aisha probably knows better, but again, someone who was impetuous and wanted to prove a point and by grandstanding. This is not a party in your birthday party or occasion where you're going to demonstrate how courageous you are. This is about the most serious business of bilateral relations, foreign policy. And he behaves so immaturely. I'm aghast. And on a day when We are condoling the death of the 5 brave soldiers in Rajouri, and apparently reports suggest that it's Jaish-e-Mohammed or one of its fringe splinters who's responsible for that attack. And he makes a mockery of terrorism by saying weaponizing terrorism. What does he mean by that? You weaponize multilateralism. Terrorism is a weapon. Terrorism is about violence, creating terror, creating fear. Even his metaphors are far too mixed for him to justify his Oxford education.
Bilawal has turned out to be a teenager. He's irrational and ignorant, not just impetuous. India cannot do business with him after how he has behaved on Indian soil. This is a day when 5 Indian soldiers have died. Very strong words there from Professor Amitabh Mattu. Ambassador Sinha, you're going to have a I told you so moment because you were not in favor of actually this SCO forum proceeding if Mr. Bhutto was going to be in attendance. I think you anticipated this would happen. But even by your anticipations, did you actually think that you would see this kind of language कि उनको जवाब देंगे वक्त आने पर?
Well, that is the language that he has been using in the past, so I'm not surprised. In fact, I was surprised that in his main speech, he was extremely cautious, careful, and only made indirect jibes. He made references to terrorism and said that terrorism should not be used as a diplomatic tool. But then the true colors came out very soon because the temptation point was extremely strong. You have elections coming up in Pakistan. His government is in trouble. Imran Khan, the chief opponent, has taken a very strong anti-Indian stand. Now, in this kind of a situation, for him to have come and not made a statement which can get him some headlines back home would have been extremely surprising. So I was a little pleasantly surprised earlier, but now that he's made this statement in the press conference, I'm kind of not. I mean, I feel sorry that this has happened. But actually, it is not just he who is immature. I come back to the point of the SCO itself. The SCO has compelled us to offer a platform to Bilawal Bhutto to come and make a statement against us on our soil. Now, this kind of an organization should not be an organization of which we should be a part. This was expected. And had this not happened, the SCO meeting itself would have been a non-event. I just looked up the China Daily, China's main English daily. They didn't even have a report on this meeting of foreign ministers today. All they had was a report on Chingang going to Islamabad later today for the meeting on Afghanistan. So as far as China is concerned, this is not even an event important enough to be reported in the daily newspaper. And in India now, tomorrow's newspapers will be full of only what Bilawal Bhutto Zardari said against India. And the conference itself becomes irrelevant, which it has been largely. In fact, I went back and looked up some of the articles written by Indians in the IDSA, the Institute of Defense Studies and Analysis, when India became a member in 2016. And one of the fears expressed was that by some other countries, that if India and Pakistan joined, then the organization would get bogged down by India-Pakistan rivalry. And this is what seems to have happened now, because this seems to override everything else. So,
are you suggesting, in other words, that the very existence of the SCO forum has actually led to a manipulation, as it were, of India's interests at the forum by the very presence of Mr. Bhutto and the way he's chosen to comment?
Yes, you see, if you go back to that period when India became a member, it was Russia that was very keen to bring India in, because as China rose in importance globally, Russia wanted to counter that, and it wanted to bring India in. And then to counter India's entry, China decided to bring Pakistan in. So both of us became pawns in this rivalry between China and Russia. Now, of course, the situation has changed considerably, but the fact remains that we've been pawns in this game of countering each other, and that has led to the SCO itself becoming largely irrelevant. The most important issue being discussed today is, whether English should be the official language of the organization or not. And for the last 7 years, India has been trying to make English one of the official languages. The only two other languages are Russian and Chinese. So this is what the organization has achieved in the 7 years that India has been a member.
Okay. Let me get in Dr. Aisha Siddiqa and then come to you, General Sharma, because I think it's important to also have somewhat of a Pakistani perspective. Aisha, I think everybody expected that there would be some sort of pushback from Mr. Bhutto to present Pakistan's stated positions. That maybe would not have created the kind of stir that these comments later to the Pakistan media have, right? The coarseness of language is something he's already faulted for. To use language like Waqt Aane par Jawab Denge, India's arrogance, they have, other countries will not compromise on morals. This is back to impetuous behavior, to borrow Amitabh's word. Why do you think he's behaved like this?
See, if you remember yesterday, when I spoke at your program itself, I said that, he will be attending as Pakistan's foreign minister. And, Amitabh can feel very upset and angry, and all of you are, that, he's been impetuous, he's been immature, etc., etc. He was presenting what Pakistan military and political establishments both put together would have said. I mean, had you sent, for example, Nawaz Sharif in place of Bilawal Bhutto, would have said the same thing. Now, a couple of things, every nation has its own memory. And, when Amitabh talks about what Zulfikar Ali Bhutto did or what, others did, I would also like to remind that, Pakistan also remembers Mukti Bani, the support which admitted by Narendra Modi, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, how Mukti Bani was held, created, etc., etc. So both nations have this experience, and not to forget Kulbhushan Jadhav, who was, we can, and I don't want to get into the details of the nitty-gritty of these cases. The point I'm trying to make is that both countries have their experiences. I think that there was the forum in which I think he was diplomatic, as much diplomatic as could possibly be. The reason that Indian media wasn't invited to the press briefing that he gave for his own media was primarily because had Indian media come and asked him pointed question, there would have been a bigger tamasha then.
Yeah.
Now, what he's done here is that, of course, satisfied his own constituency and said that, look, our responses have not changed. We are not here to compromise at the SCO forum. He's trying to say what many others in the government in Pakistan are saying, that, look, Pakistan is not compromising. Once we sit down and talk, perhaps, we can talk terrorism, we can talk Kashmir, and we can talk other things. But at a multilateral forum where there was an opportunity, he spoke what his government expected him to say. End of story.
Yeah, but can I ask you briefly, because I actually do want to play out
Sure.
what he said about Kashmir without calling it Kashmir at the forum. Did he have to use this language? Waqt aane par ye jawab denge. This is childish, right? I don't think Nawaz Sharif, for example, spoke like this. I mean, I'm just giving an example of other politicians from Pakistan that I've seen. There may have been institutional battles, but there was a certain tehzeeb that was maintained.
See, I don't think that he was trying to do bat-tehzeebi. When I heard, the question that was asked and his response, he basically said, if they think they're going to do it in Srinagar, then other members of the SCO will not accept it. So he's talking about a diplomatic jawab, nothing more.
Okay. It won't be received as that. That I'm pretty sure of. You already heard how Amitabh and Ambassador Sinha felt. General Sharma?
And one just very, very quickly.
Yeah.
I think it's very sad what happened this morning, and that is something of great concern. If Pakistani-based groups are involved, my own expectation has always been that this must stop. After FATF in particular, I thought this is going to stop. And if it starts even in smaller forms, it's a matter of concern. And government of Pakistan should do something to ensure that this terrorism stops from Pakistani soil.
And this, of course, is the key concern for India. It's at the heart of everything India believes. General Sharma, let's bring you in, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Barkha. I will first take in all the adjectives used by Professor Mattu and multiplied by 2. The fact of the matter is that having seen his course remarks earlier about the Prime Minister being made what was expected of him? Wouldn't he have a script as to what he was going to speak? You know, he selected his correspondents, 7 of them journalists that he brought along. He would have tied up the kind of questions that will be asked to him and the type of responses that he will give. So, you know, it's all a rigged match. It was pre-planned that he will come out. You know, there was no need to have a press conference. Did Chin Gang have a press conference here? Did Lavrov had a press conference here, or any one of the others had a press conference? What was the necessity of him to announce it in his own soil that he's going to have a press conference here in India? And he calls his 7 journalists that flew with him in the aircraft and had a rigged questions and gave a rigged answers. And so anybody who expected that there would be something vanilla comes out of what he has been stating, and I mean, it was beyond imagination. So he had to say what he said. It's a hybrid democracy. It's a country where the democracy is overridden by the military, and naturally the military would have cleared his move across to Goa. The military would have also told him how to handle the situation out here, which he's done it. So he has just played his part. I don't think there is something natural coming out of Bilawal Bhutto and what he said. This is his being. This is the character of it. I mean, I was being reminded of the Agra press conference that Musharraf had, and, you know, let such a bad taste and spoiled relations for years altogether, that press conference which he took. So the fact is, it was well expected of what Bilawal Bhutto did. He didn't have to come if he had to say this. There is some honor. There is some relationships involved here. There is a time to say things. He could go back home and speak what he wanted to speak. But was it this opportune moment to speak like this, the way he's done it? I mean, it's not acceptable to us, and it's just, and what Jawab is he telling us? Is that a threat? What Jawab is he telling us? That, you know, he's telling us, "Hum Jawab denge." So what kind of Jawab will you do? You have already parted away with the POK and Gilgit-Baltistan to establish the CPEC corridor and whole lot of mining activities which Chinese are carrying out in Gilgit-Baltistan. So what are you saying that, you know, you're not doing in your own part of territory? So I mean, one is greatly pained by him having said what he said in Goa, and it's certainly not acceptable to us. We don't have to respond to him in the same manner and in the impetuousness he does, but we have our own manner of doing things. And I must say that one feels pained with the 5 brave hearts who lost their lives out today in Rajouri. In the same, you look at the weaponry being found across there. This weaponry, steel core bullets, the M4, M16 rifles which belong to the Americans, which the Americans left behind in Afghanistan, or what are being traced out in J&K. How do they come there? They have to come through the conduit called Pakistan. We know what's happening with all these drones which are dropping across weapons, etc., etc. So, you know, the fact of the matter is that the intentions have not changed. They remain like that, and we have to be prepared accordingly.
Okay, now Aisha drew a very important distinction. The Indians won't be convinced of that, but it's worth us talking about it for a moment, between him addressing a domestic audience and him addressing the SCO Forum. And she suggested that while he was speaking at the SCO Forum, he pretty much stayed within the framework of Pakistan's stated positions. He didn't even use the K word, Kashmir. Of course, as I said, he said a whole lot else later, which Dr. Siddiqa argues was aimed at his domestic audience. Will India accept this distinction? I don't know. But what I want to do is to play out a clip on how he referenced Kashmir at the SCO Forum. There are a lot of other words, Aisha, here that I found quite loaded, and I want our panel to actually react to it. Listen.
Great powers play the role of peacemaker. We can unlock the potential of peace while paving the way for greater cooperation, regional integration, and economic opportunities for our peoples. We must ensure respect for the universally recognized principles within the SCO. Unilateral and illegal measures by states in violation of international law and Security Council resolutions runs counter to the SCO objectives. We need to be unambiguous in keeping our commitments and charting out a new future for our people, one that is not based on conflict preservation, but on conflict resolution. We must also resolutely resist the temptation to stoke prejudice and discrimination to derive our identity. It is imperative that willful provocations and incitement to hate especially on religious grounds, are roundly condemned. It is our collective duty to fight against fascism and historical revisionism that is leading to violent ultranationalism anywhere in the world. We must ensure that racism and xenophobic ideologies have no place in today's world, and fundamental human rights and freedoms are guaranteed to all. I would like to conclude by reaffirming Pakistan's unwavering support and commitment to the SCO's goals and objectives. The SCO represents more than 40% of the world's population and almost a quarter of the world's GDP. In other words, the SCO represents the future, and it can be a glorious and prosperous future for all of us, if only we can work together to seize it. I thank you.
All right. I can see, General Katot joining us as well. Good to see you, sir. Amitabh, I want to start with you. That was the SCO forum. What came later was much worse. As I said, a brazen threat. Waqt par aisa jawab denge. Aisha says he didn't mean that. But the comments at the SCO forum itself were also heavily loaded. Revisionism, hatred, fascism, right? References to the UN Security Council. Yes, FM Jaishankar did talk about cross-border terrorism. It came in the end, it was 2 lines. Mr. Bhutto's speech was much more political, I think, much more loaded. I don't know what you thought. Professor Mantu.
Yeah, I think I agree with you and disagree with my dear friend Aisha. What he said in English was what he said in Urdu, and obviously his English is better than his Urdu. So often you can disregard the inflammatory content because he spoke in fluent English. But what he said, as you pointed out, the underlying message of religious intolerance, fascism, root causes. And there in the press conference, it came out as a street fighter speaking the same words in Urdu, कि अब तो मैं जवाब दूंगा इसका. I mean, it's frankly, I see it as seamless. All those who are trying to make a distinction that he was very, very restrained in the forum probably don't read the subtext of that language. Obviously, it is a diplomatic forum. You can't be as outrageous as you can be in a press conference. What puzzles me, and that's a puzzle which I think Aisha, as an intellectual, you should answer, is why did he need to come to Goa? Apart from the fact that Goa is a lovely place, not the best weather to come to Goa. But why couldn't he do it virtually? He could have done all this, given all his interviews, done a virtual press conference for all his Pakistani blokes. Why did he need to come? If the defense minister had taken a decision that he won't come for the SCO defense ministers, why did Bilawal have to come and show his face, go to Goa, spend the taxpayers' money on a special plane from Pakistan? Puzzles me, because I thought, you see, at the end of the day, we're all sentimental people. मैंने समझा कि शायद माहौल बनाने के लिए आ रहा है, but इसने तो माहौल बिगाड़ दिया पूरा. I mean, do you think that under these circumstances, living in India, living in democratic India, any leadership of India can reach out to Bilawal Bhutto or the Prime Minister in these circumstances? I mean, you can have a back channel and you can exercise restraint, but if you want a proper jhappi, then the democratic elected leaders need to do that. And under these circumstances, I really can't find how he can get a face saver. How can he walk back?
Unless, as Ambassador Sinha suggests, he came precisely to do this, to gain brownie points with the establishment back home. That is, I think, I'll get Aisha to respond, but Ambassador, you want to jump in?
Yes, as General Sharma said, this was rigged. This was obviously very well planned, that he would speak indirectly at the conference itself, so that Pakistan could not be accused of bringing up bilateral issues or bilateral combative issues in the SCO forum, which is not a good thing. And since Pakistan is greatly in love with the SCO because it is a China-led international organization, and they had said as much, that is, the Deputy Foreign Minister had said as much before the visit, that he was coming because Pakistan wants to ensure that it shows its commitment to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Now, so having done that, then he used his presence in India, on Indian soil, with his exclusive Pakistani journalists to say what he wanted to say, to establish his credentials as a person who could come to India and on Indian soil, threaten India and go back. Now, yesterday or the other day, you had played a clip of Fawad Chaudhry talking about how Pakistan had entered India and pokoed India in Pulwama. Now, that was done in the Pakistani parliament. This was on Indian soil in Goa.
Yeah.
And that is a great achievement for any foreign leader to come to India and on Indian soil threaten India and then go back and claim that he has achieved this.
And
so
that
we offered him a platform, and I'm not surprised that he took the opportunity.
And that may answer Amitabh's question partially, that maybe this was the plan. Because there might be viewers who are just tuning in, I just want to play out the comment. Even his SCO speech, I don't think is going to go down well with the Indians. It was very loaded. But this comment on the G20 being held in Srinagar and what Mr. Bhutto said in response, let's just listen in as we wait for Foreign Minister Jaishankar to also begin his address.
मोनाफान इंडिपेंडेंट होते G20 वैसे ज़्यावत का इजलास होने जा रहा है श्रीनगर में 22 को तो आपको क्या लगता है कि आप समझते हैं कि ये जो इजलास होने जा रहा है ये G20 की तरफ से इन्वेस्टमेंट है
नहीं यार आप एक ऑब्वियसली हम इस चीज़ को मज़ाहमत करते हैं और वक्त पे एक ऐसा जवाब देंगे कि हमको याद रहेगा मगर इसका ये करना ही इनका पैचीनेस को दिखाता है. It is a show of their arrogance to the world. Okay, to hell with international law, to hell with United Nations Security Council resolutions, to hell with any bilateral agreement. India will hold their events in Kashmir. What they'll find is they will be unable to achieve 110% attendance because other people will not compromise on their morals.
General Katoch, surprised? Not surprised?
No, I'm not surprised at all. In fact, even yesterday when we spoke on the subject, it was my view that the best we can hope for is the situation doesn't go worse. And I had also made a statement that there is no limit to how bad it can go. It has already deteriorated, but I can assure you it can go much further. The depths to which the relations can deteriorate is unimaginable. And even when we imagine that, it can go down even further. Just as a matter of interest, I think it was Einstein who made a very revealing statement. He said that there are two things which are unlimited. One is human stupidity and the other is the universe. And then he amended that. He said, now I'm not sure about the universe. That means the universe can have a limit, but human stupidity cannot have any limit. And I think that has been proved today. Here is an opportunity, which is a God-given opportunity given to a diplomat or to a minister of the Pakistan government. And he has not taken it. I'm surprised. I'm surprised at that level of stupidity that when you have an opportunity, you don't seize it. Now, is he working on the dictates of the Pakistan military? I don't know. But, in the Jinnah Institute, where the views of various people had been sought on this particular issue, even there, the views were very vitriolic, Each one of them, they were not very happy about the foreign minister coming to India. So I think it is simply not confined to Mr. Zardari, who is the foreign minister.
Yes.
I think it is there amongst the intellectual circles, amongst the diplomats of Pakistan. So I'm not surprised. But one more thing I'd like to say, they keep talking about Kashmir, and I feel that Kashmir is a very major issue, but they're getting the wrong end of the stick, you see. The only issue in Kashmir is when will they give back Gilgit-Baltistan and Mirpur Muzaffarabad. In my view, that is the only issue and the only issue to be discussed. I would recommend to them to give it back peacefully. Otherwise, we will get it back by force. And let me give the counter threat to them now.
Okay, so I'm only smiling because India-Pakistan days that start politely usually end in this place that we're standing today. I want to bring in Aisha. You've heard how passionately, Indians feel about this. For a moment, I want you to tackle Amitabh's question. Is it that Bilawal ne aake mahol bigada, or is it that Bilawal, as Ambassador Sinha says, always planned to do this? Was Bilawal a teenager who couldn't use his words appropriately? Would there have been different politicians who would have handled this moment better? Or did he come with instructions to behave precisely in this manner and use precisely this sort of language? Dr. Siddiqa.
Right. See, firstly, I think that it's neither immaturity. He, as again, I'd repeat myself, as I said yesterday, he would come precisely to give Pakistan's point of view. And even if you can dig deep into every sentence he spoke at the formal session and say, ye theek nahi tha, wo theek nahi tha, ye tha, wo tha. I mean, why did you expect that, I think formally, he did what he could have done, which is like without going very public and without going very open with what Pakistan felt about Indian policy. He also talked about reaching out. He talked about climate change. He talked about poverty. He talked about all these issues and terrorism, which are common, which is a common threat. And basically, there is another way of reading into his statement, which is like, while on the one hand presenting Pakistan's point of view, which is exactly what I always expected he would do, he wasn't on that bandwagon saying that, I'm going to come and present a different policy. He came to present Pakistan's policy. Now, why did he come? I mean, I'm suddenly reminded of 1980s. I mean, if you remember, and Amitabh definitely will, 1980s, when there was at the height of Pakistan-India tension, General Ziaul Haq, even General Ziaul Haq decided to come to India on the famous cricket diplomacy. Now, despite that, tensions remained high. But I think the point he was making, Bilawal, with this visit was that, we are ready to reach out, but not compromise on our basic stand as far as policy is concerned. Do not think that because we are starving, because we have food issues, we have economy issues, that we are going to compromise on, our military approach. That's one. The other is that I think the important test for, General Katod said that hum jawab denge, fair enough, and most welcome. But the fact of the matter is that India has twice, experimented with surgical strikes. Now, another surgical strike could happen, but surgical strikes do get the responses as well. I mean, it's costly for Pakistan, but it's also costly for India. It's not easy to think in terms of that. So what Bilawal said, we can find many things wrong with the statement he made to Pakistani press, but I think what the intention was that to present Pakistan's point of view. This is how Pakistan feels about Kashmir, about solving other issues. It can either be, both states can either sit down and cooperate or fight. I think that's the message.
Okay, I'm sorry, Aisha. Okay, we're going to have to actually cut across in a moment. Mr. Arinder Bagchi, Joint Secretary in the Foreign Ministry, is introducing Dr. Jaishankar. I'm sure our panelists wanted to respond to you. But Aisha, I will just say one thing. There's a difference between stating Pakistan policy, which I think the Indian government would have expected him to do, and the choice of words, the way you say something, the fact that you shouldn't get heavily loaded on another country's internal politics, no matter what your position is on it, that too at an SCO forum. Amitabh, if just a brief comment there before Dr. Jaishankar starts speaking on what Aisha has said, briefly. I'll have to interrupt you when Jay speaks. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
I agree with you entirely. There is a certain protocol. There's a certain vocabulary that you use. Of course, one can be grateful for small mercies because Imran Khan's one of her leaders, Shirin Mazari, who's a professor of international relations and could be foreign minister tomorrow, said कि नमस्ते भी नहीं करना चाहिए था. He sold out by doing namaste to Jaishankar. Of course, I think Bilawal responded correctly that in Sindh and Multan, it is
traditional, and it's part of the cultural idiom to do namaste.
Sorry,
But
Amitabh, I'm so sorry. Dr. Jaishankar is speaking. If you would all stay on, and we can get reactions to what he says. Let's listen.
During the meeting, the SCO Foreign Ministers assessed the status of decisions that will be approved at the upcoming SCO summit in July. The meeting also gave an opportunity to dwell on the state of multilateral cooperation in SCO, to address regional and global issues of interest, talk about the reform and modernization of the organization, and assess the progress of admitting Iran and Belarus to SCO as new member states. As you're all aware, Prime Minister Modi had articulated India's priorities for the SCO chair with the theme of towards a secure SCO. The acronym SECURE was given by Prime Minister because it lays out the main focus under our ongoing chairship, and SECURE stands for security, economic development, connectivity, unity, respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity, and environmental protection. I would also like to inform you that under our ongoing presidency, we have successfully hosted more than 100 meetings and events so far, including 15 ministerial levels or head of agency meetings. Many of the socio-cultural events hosted by India were the first of its kind in the framework of the SCO. The designation of Varanasi, Kashi, as the first ever SCO cultural and tourist capital for 2022-23, I think deserves special mention. It was our endeavor to create new verticals of cooperation in SCO. And as an example, I can cite the field of startups and innovation, traditional medicine, science and technology, empowering youth, and reviving the Buddhist heritage amongst the SCO member states. The work to implement these verticals is already underway, and it is being spearheaded by India. We are also committed to strengthening and further deepening the cooperation within the framework of SCO, and many of our initiatives and steps were in that direction. We have opened up new areas of cooperation and intensified engagement among member states. We hope to continue the momentum of our interaction, and we are obviously looking forward to the summit in July. In the course of these 2 days, I also held fruitful bilateral interactions with my counterparts from Russia, China, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan. All ministers reaffirmed their support to India as the chair of SCO and expressed their appreciation for the contribution of India. I also met the Secretary General of the SCO and discussed the diversification and the deepening of SCO agenda. As regards the bilateral relationships, let me start with Russia. FM Lavrov and I noted the progress that has been made in our economic cooperation. We exchanged views on a number of regional and global developments. Since the G20 meetings are ongoing, and there's a BRICS Foreign Ministers meeting which is coming up soon, these two were also the subject of our discussion. Where FM Qingang of China is concerned, much of our attention, I think predictably, went to the disengagement issue in the Western sector. Yeah, but here again, the G20 and BRICS featured in the talks because China is a member of both groupings. With Minister Saidov of Uzbekistan, it was a warm first meeting. We took stock of our bilateral ties and agreed to have another conversation soon. This was also the case with Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Nutliev of Kazakhstan. With my Tajik and Kyrgyz counterparts, Foreign Minister Sirajuddin and Kulubayev, now they are long-standing friends with whom we have a rolling, ongoing conversation. And some of the subjects which came up in the meeting with them were overlapping with those of the others in Central Asia. They included connectivity, counterterrorism, health, trade, and energy. With all the Central Asian ministers, we agreed that the India-Central Asia format meetings in different domains should take place at an early date. So the overall sense that I would like to share with you is that of a productive SCO Council of Foreign Ministers meeting. I think it was useful in preparing the ground for the summit. So those are some opening thoughts, and I would be delighted to take questions.
Thank you, sir. Before I take the questions, ground rules, please. Please introduce yourself and the organization that you represent. We'll also not be able to accommodate more than one question, even that may be difficult. Let me start. Can I start with you?
सर प्रणय उपाध्याय एबीपी न्यूज से सर सामने प्रणय उपाध्याय एबीपी न्यूज से सर मेरा सवाल इस चीज को लेकर है कि एससीओ की विदेश मंत्रियों की बैठक के लिए पाकिस्तान के विदेश मंत्री बिलावल भुट्टो आए थे। भारत में बहुत लंबे समय बाद किसी पाकिस्तानी विदेश मंत्री की ये यात्रा हुई थी, लेकिन अपने भाषण में उन्होंने सीपैक का जिक्र किया। आज उन्होंने कहा जम्मू कश्मीर को लेकर कि भारत G20 में अड़ियल रवैया दिखा रहा है वहां पर आयोजन को करके यहाँ की सॉइल पे। तो आपने इस यात्रा को कैसे लिया और क्या आपको लगता है कि इस यात्रा से जिस तरह से उन्होंने कमिटमेंट दिखाया एससीओ को लेकर, बायलैटरल टॉक्स को लेकर भी कोई संभावना बन सकती है? क्योंकि ये बातें ऐसे समय में हो रही जब भारत में आज टेरर अटैक भी हुआ है।
We'll take a few questions together. Yeah.
Sir, hi. This is Shivangi Thakur from Z News. आज हमने देखा किस तरह से SCO समिट हुआ, लेकिन इसके बाद सर जो पाकिस्तान के विदेश मंत्री हैं उनका एक बयान सामने आया है और उन्होंने कहा है कि आतंकवाद पर भारत और पाकिस्तान को साथ मिलकर बैठकर बातचीत करना चाहिए क्योंकि हम भी इससे पीड़ित हैं। ऐसे में जब वो यहाँ पर आए हैं, द्विपक्षीय वार्ता नहीं हुई है, राजौरी में आज भी हमारे जवान शहीद हुए हैं, तो कैसे देखते हैं? क्योंकि वो कह रहे हैं कि सिंपल सी चीज है, वो कह रहे हैं आतंकवाद पे हम दोनों को मिलकर काम करना चाहिए, लेकिन कैसे करेंगे जब आप समिट में आकर बातचीत नहीं करते?
सिद्धांत।
Hi, sir. Siddhant from WION. When it comes to bilateral with the Chinese foreign minister, the Chinese readout says that situation at the border is stable. How do you see this divergence in the position?
Between
the Chinese side claiming that everything is normal at the border, everything is stable at the border.
Yeah, ma'am, there. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Munize Jahangir. I'm from Pakistan, from Aaj TV, and my question to you over here is that the Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari made a bold move by coming here, and it is being seen as a breakthrough. He is also being criticized, but how do you, India, see it? Do you see it as a breakthrough, and what will be your roadmap in the future to resumption of at least diplomatic ties with Pakistan?
Sir, perhaps 4 questions. I'll hand over to you, sir.
देखिए, 3 सवाल जो हैं वो पाकिस्तान पर थे, एक सवाल जो है वो चाइना पर था। तो ये 3 सवाल जो पाकिस्तान वाले सवाल जो हैं मैं एक साथ लेना चाहूँगा ताकि because they are overlapping questions. First of all, let me say this. As a foreign minister of an SCO member state, Mr. Bhutto Zardari was treated accordingly. As a promoter, justifier, and I'm sorry to say spokesperson of a terrorism industry, which is the mainstay of Pakistan, his positions were called out and they were countered, including at the SCO meeting itself. So let me come to the specifics. On the China-Pakistan economic corridor, this so-called corridor. I think it was made very clear, not once but twice in the SCO meeting, that connectivity is good for progress, but connectivity cannot violate the territorial integrity and sovereignty of states. So this has been our long-standing position. Nobody should have any doubt about it. And I assure you, those who are in the room today had no doubt about it. I made sure of that. Regarding आपका दूसरा जो था वो G20 के बारे में था. Now, you know, I don't think there is a G20 issue to debate with anybody. Certainly not with a country which is nothing to do with the G20. I mean, Jammu and Kashmir was, is, will always be a part of India. And the G20 meetings are held in all the Indian states and union territories, so it is completely natural that it is held there. जो आपका जो दूसरा सवाल जो था कि from what I understood that India and Pakistan should sit together. You know, victims of terrorism do not sit together with perpetrators of terrorism to discuss terrorism. Victims of terrorism defend themselves, counter acts of terrorism, they call it out, they delegitimize it, and that is exactly what is happening. So to come here and preach these hypocritical words as though we are on the same boat, I mean, they are committing acts of terrorism. And, you know, I don't want to jump the gun on what happened today, but I think we're all feeling equally outraged. So, I think, I mean, let's be very, very clear on this. You know, on this matter, the terrorism matter, I mean, I would say Pakistan's credibility is depleting even faster than its forex reserves. So, you know, let's be clear what this is about. On your question, you know, is this a breakthrough? Look, he came here as a member, a foreign minister of an SCO member state. That is part of multilateral diplomacy. Please do not see it as anything more than that. It was not meant as anything more than that. It was not treated as anything more than that. And I think nothing that from what he said or what I heard he said deserves for this to be treated more than that. The China question. Look, my understanding of what the Chinese said, I think they used the word stable, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is that there is an abnormal position in the boundary areas, border areas along the boundary. And we had a very frank discussion about it. It's not the first discussion. I had spoken to Foreign Minister Chingang on the sidelines of the G20 as well. So we have to take the disengagement process forward. And I have made it very clear, frankly, publicly as well. And you know, what I say within the room is not different from what I say outside, which is that India-China relations are not normal and cannot be normal if the peace and tranquility in the border areas is disturbed. You know, I've been very, very clear about it. I've been very consistent about it. And I have not changed my position at this meeting either.
Thank you. So listen, before, in the interest of efficiency, please do not repeat similar questions or try to come back to it. I think, so I'll take fresh questions on that. Maha? Yeah.
Sir, Maha Siddiqui from NDTV. Sir, how does India view being part of an organization which is now largely being viewed as an anti-West grouping?
Yeah, Neeraj?
सर नीरज हूँ न्यूज 18 इंडिया से। आपने कहा कि G20 से पाकिस्तान का कोई लेना देना नहीं है, लेकिन बिलावल भुट्टो ने यह भी कहा श्रीनगर में जो पर्यटन के मसले पर बैठक हो रही है, वक्त पर ऐसा जवाब देंगे कि उनको याद रहेगा। इस स्टेटमेंट को भारत कैसे देखता है?
देखिए स्पेसिफिक ऐसे क्वेश्चन नहीं हो पाएगा, जवाब दे चुके हैं
मैं इसका भी जवाब दूंगा।
यस यस सर प्लीज गो अहेड वन सेकंड प्लीज
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Dmitry Melnikov from Russian TV. Sir, was Ukrainian crisis part of today's discussion? And did Mr. Lavrov tell you about the recent attack on Kremlin in Moscow? And what is your point of view? Thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you. Microphone coming to you. No, no, him. Yeah. Right.
Hello, sir. Rishikesh, Press Trust of India say. Sir, Pak FM also said that we should not get caught up in weaponizing terrorism for diplomatic point scoring. So, what are your views on this?
Manish, you want Manish? Microphone. Take this 5.
Sir, Manish Chand, India Rights Network. Just before his meeting with you, Chinese Foreign Minister was addressing a function in honor of Dr. Kotnes, where he spoke about people-to-people contacts and finding a new path of peaceful coexistence. Did you see any signaling towards, some sort of peace move, some sort of restructuring of engagement?
But she answered this question anyway.
No,
Thank you, sir.
still the people-to-people
Okay, let me start with the anti-West, is SCO perceived as an anti-Western grouping? Look, how people perceive it is something I cannot answer for. What I can say is it is a grouping where membership serves India's interests. India has a multi-directional foreign policy with many partners, and it's not always necessary or sometimes possible that all partners get along with other partners. So this is characteristic of the foreign policy in today's very fluid and I would say multipolar and sometimes uncertain, volatile world. So we are members of SCO because it serves our interests. It is a major Eurasian grouping. There are, most other members of this grouping are countries with whom we have strong bilateral relationships. Obviously, not all, and I think really that's how I would present our participation. I will jump that question, come to the Ukraine question, because I want to take the Pakistan related questions together. On the Ukraine, I wouldn't say there was focused discussion on developments in Ukraine, including recent developments. There were references to it. There were some references to it in the SCO formal session. There was some reference to it in the informal meeting that we had of the foreign ministers yesterday. So I think that would be really the right characterization of what happened in the room. Regarding the Kotnes, Dr. Kotnes question and people to people. Look, again, I think Arindam made the point. I mean, I've answered this in a way that relations today are not normal. So to suggest somehow that they are and everything else can continue and, while the relevant issues, the central problems are not being effectively addressed, I think it won't wash. That there are issues we need to discuss. I think both countries need to be clear about it. Now, it may be the endeavor or expectation to try and project exactly the kind of picture which you would suggest. But I would not go along with it. I certainly will not play along with it. Then on the जो आपका सवाल जो था, देखिए, I said उनका कोई G20 से लेना देना नहीं है. I will also say उनका कोई श्रीनगर से भी लेना देना नहीं. there is only one issue to discuss on Kashmir, which is when does Pakistan vacate its illegal occupation of Pakistan occupied Kashmir. That is the only issue up for discussion. On the weaponization, it's a very interesting statement because it unconsciously reveals a mindset. What does weaponizing something mean? It means that the activity is legitimate and somebody is weaponizing it. So you say you are weaponizing trade, you are weaponizing technology. Somebody says you are weaponizing terrorism, that means they think terrorism is legitimate, that we should not weaponize it. That is normal. Okay. Now, what are we doing? We are countering ourselves, countering terrorism. We are defending ourselves. We are calling it out. We are exposing it. And some of it is what you saw today. So, to me, we are not scoring diplomatic points. We are politically, diplomatically exposing Pakistan before the world. And as a victim of terrorism, I'm completely entitled to do so. I mean, what do you mean we should not weaponize terrorism? That means as a victim, I'm supposed to put up with it. I mean, so you not only commit terrorism, but you say, oh, please do not even speak about it. I mean, come on. So to me, that sentence, it spoke so much about the mindset of that country that you can all, see for yourselves.
Thank you. So we'll take a few more questions. Yeah.
सर पाकिस्तान के विदेश मंत्री ने ये भी कहा कि पीस सर इधर विजय लक्ष्मी हूँ इंडिया टीवी से सर पाकिस्तान के विदेश मंत्री ने ये भी कहा कि पीस इज आवर डेस्टिनी एंड वी शुड नॉट बी हेल्ड होस्टेज टू आवर हिस्ट्री हम हिस्ट्री खुद क्रिएट करेंगे लेकिन आज ही राजौरी में हमला होता है हमारे कई जवान शहीद होते हैं कुछ दिनों पहले पुंछ में भी हमला हुआ लेकिन यहाँ पर पाकिस्तान का दोहरा चरित्र हालांकि अंग्रेजी में आप जवाब दे चुके हैं इसका हिंदी में चाहूंगी क्या पाकिस्तान का दोहरा चरित्र इसी से जग जाहिर होता है
इस टॉपिक पे बात 3 बार हो चुका है
उसका सबूत भी चाहिए क्या
प्लीज मैम I remember you. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Runjhun Sharma, RT. There are speculations on SCO becoming a military alliance. How does India see the role of SCO, particularly in the security area?
Okay, I think we have a lot to discuss already. Mr. Jaishankar's live press conference is available on our platform on another very, very strong words there. I want to start with you, Professor Mattu. You heard the whole press conference. And as I said, I did not expect Mr. Bhutto's comments to be stated position. Jaishankar has been extremely scathing, I would say, in his response. How do you see his comments?
I think his response has been, as you said, extremely strong and rightly so, because in some ways you feel diplomatically and otherwise almost violated that Bilawal Bhutto Zardari performed the manner in which he did. And as I said, I don't think I can make a distinction between what he said in the forum itself, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, with his snide references to fascism, to religious intolerance, to root causes, to his brazenly outrageous behavior at the press conference. And on a day when you've had this ghastly tragedy in Rajouri, clearly a work of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, clearly a work of an organization which has been created, sponsored, trained by the Pakistan's Aisa. I mean, Jaishankar is not reflecting his individual peeve. I think he's reflecting a general sense of outrage. I mean, I am outraged by the way Bilawal, who you would have thought comes from a generation which wants to move ahead, is more idealistic, is behaving with such lack of dignity, frankly. This is not diplomacy. There is a certain dignity that you... I mean, the way in which he said in his broken Urdu, if I may say, Jawab, Denge, inka, it's really... I find it extremely
colorless, immature, as I said, and really something which makes me very deeply worried about Pakistan. Even as I said, the only worst thing that could happen to Pakistan is tomorrow Imran Khan comes to power and Shirin Mazari, who I would imagine is Aisha's beta noir as well. Shirin Mazari becomes the foreign minister because she would not at least do namaste either, and no pretenses. It would be war from the point of entering Goa.
Yeah.
So I am disturbed, and Jaishankar is reflecting a collective sense of people who are deeply disturbed, who see no sense of hope with the current regime, and indeed from the Bhutto Zardaris.
General Sharma, would it be worse to say then that these 24 hours have made India-Pakistan relations worse?
So I would say so. See, when before they started from there, Hina Rabani, she had said that we are not going to Goa, we are not going to India, we are going to SCO. So did Bilawal said, we are going to SCO, we are not going to India or Goa. And earlier in the month of June, he spoke at a think tank in Islamabad, said, I am a foreign minister, I would love to go to India. Is this what was being made up to? If he has come to attend an event in SCO, it is SCO. It is not meant for coming about and rigging up questions and answering it like that. So the fact of the matter is that he has hurt the sentiments of a nation. This is a poor show on his part, and I agree exactly what Professor Mattu has been saying, that this is not the kind of language that needs to be spoken at this level. I mean, he should have shown a little more decorum in taking up the questions. Maybe the press conference. Why didn't the others take press conferences? There are so many foreign ministers there. They didn't take press conferences. What was the excitement on part of Bilawal to rig up a press conference and get on with it? He could have gone back home and spoken. What he wanted to speak. It won't have made a difference. He might have his own constituency. There is a social media glut into stating in Pakistan saying that he should not have gone. Even Ambassador Bassett saying that he should not have gone across to India. We understand the constituency. If there is a constituency which says don't go, don't come. I mean, why should you create a ill will between countries?
And I think that's the question that Professor Mattu had posed to Dr. Siddiqa. So let me remind her of that question. Why do you think he came, Aisha?
Well, as I mentioned, I'd even mentioned yesterday, I think the signal that he wanted to send was that, don't think of Pakistan as this weak country. We have come with friends, China and Russia and the others, Uzbekistan, with Uzbekistan and China. Pakistan is talking of a project, a road rail linkage project. So I think he came with a confident mood as far as foreign policy is concerned. And he wanted to express that Pakistan is not down and out, but it's there and it can point out. I mean, as far as Jaishankar's response, his press briefing is concerned, I think, I wasn't expecting anything different. I think, in fact, he was less hostile. He presented India's position and made it clear that we'll sit. I mean, I think what my takeaway from Mr. Jaishankar's press conference is that he said SCO is important. We are going to stick around. We'll be part of it. We'll see this organization grow. And yes, there is a problem. There is a bottleneck as far as Pakistan-India relations are concerned. They're not going anywhere. And he said that he'll respond. Bilawal has said he'll respond. So I think we are where we thought it would be. One had hoped that perhaps attitudes on both sides would be a bit softer. So, but let me also remind that perhaps, and I think the reason which made the press conference important for him politically is that with so much of criticism from all kinds of people who were not looking at his visit very kindly, that's number one. And two, I think it made it imperative with whatever political scene at home that he comes out looking as a strong guy.
You don't think briefly, because I want to go to concluding remarks to General Katoch and Ambassador Sinha. You don't think that, suppose hypothetically he had said, This is not the place to talk about bilateral issues. I will go back to Pakistan and address the Pakistan media. I came for a multilateral forum. I don't need to be talking about all this. Suppose that had been his script, Aisha. Don't you think it would have been
I
different
don't.
atmospherics?
No, I don't think he wanted to do that.
Exactly. That's the point,
Right.
right? Yeah.
I don't think he wanted to do that. He just wanted to make sure that at least his home constituency, in Punjab, and definitely, I mean, look, honestly, like whatever Shiri Mazari and Fawad Chaudhry had been fuming, in some respects, he's given them a response and said, look, I sat there, I gave a press conference, and I didn't come looking weaker. I've come looking for my own constituency. We
Okay.
can
Okay.
look into the details of what it will do with India Pakistan, but we knew from day one that India Pakistan is not going anywhere.
Okay. Okay.
I mean,
Sorry. I'm
just
jumping.
very,
Yeah.
just
Okay.
one. I think he spoke as the foreign minister of a country which knew that India is not going to soften, even if they softened. So why waste an opportunity for a domestic audience?
All right. So he played essentially to the domestic audience because there was nothing to be gained bilaterally, I think is the point that Dr. Siddiqa is making. General Katoch, concluding remarks, and then Ambassador Sinha wraps this up.
You see, I agree with this with Dr. Siddiqa. He was playing to his domestic audience, but the point is, as a diplomat, he should not have done this. What as a long-term consequence for Pakistan, it won't go down well with either the Pakistan public or for the relationship. That is one. Number two, I think this is the beginning of the downside of the downslide of the relationship, and you will watch as we come to the end of this year and to the end of next year how further the relationship will dip. The question of getting it back on track, even to the present levels, I think is going to be a very difficult job, but it's going to dip very, very badly, and we are likely to see an increase in tensions all around. Barkha.
I would agree with that, and I think this trip could have been called a success if it had even held the holding pattern of the current cold storage. I don't think it's done that. Ambassador Sinha, you heard the defense of the forum by the foreign minister. I mean, he's not going to diss the forum having organized it, but your last thoughts.
But I'm surprised that anybody in India should be surprised with what Bilawal Bhutto Zardari said. Now, I agree completely with Dr. Siddiqa here that he came and he expressed Pakistan's official viewpoint. He did not come here to extend a hand of friendship. And for this, all we have to do is to go back to the curtain raiser that his Deputy Foreign Minister, Hina Rabbani Khar, had made in an interview. She had said that there is nothing wrong in extending a hand of friendship to India, but this is not the time. So obviously, he did not come here to extend a hand of friendship, and he used the opportunity to make a point for his domestic audience. Where I disagree with Dr. Siddiqa is that he did not show any degree of confidence because he held his press conference, which was a closed-door press conference with only his journalists. His confidence would have come out if he had allowed other journalists to come and then expressed his view, but he possibly realized that had that happened, there would have been mayhem at the press conference.
Yeah.
Now, the last point I want to make is that on the SCO membership, I think I disagree a little with our foreign minister, who said that India and Pakistan are not in the same boat, which is absolutely correct on terrorism. But the fact is that in the SCO, the irony is that India and Pakistan are in the same boat, because in the SCO, counter-terrorism is one of the areas of cooperation. So we are compelled, because of our membership of the SCO, to talk about cooperation in counter-terrorism, including holding joint anti-terror exercises with Pakistan, which we have done earlier.
Yeah.
So we are, because of this membership of the SCO, put in such difficult positions, and we have to face that.
And it goes back to your argument that you believe that the forum doesn't actually serve India's interests. That for another day. Thank you very much. You've been very, very patient. Sorry, General Sharma, you wanted to jump in with a comment? Yeah, go ahead, sir. Sorry, I was going to close.
I just want 30 seconds. I just wanted to say that the reiteration of the foreign minister on the China not normal situation is also important, because he's reiterated it in a forum like this. And, I think we need to keep stating this position again and again and again.
And also remind our audience that the Chinese foreign minister is headed as we speak to Pakistan. So that's just FYI. Thank you very much. You've all been very patient. You've stayed with us a long time. I don't think we could have hoped for better guests, and it has remained civil throughout, which goes to my point, Aisha, that I think you made your point as a Pakistani with complete dignity and civility. And I think what a lot of Indians feel is that Mr. Bhutto could have reiterated Pakistan policy in a different way, in a different tone, and in a different language. We leave it there. Dr. Siddiqa, Ambassador Sinha, Professor Mattu, General Sharma, General Katoch. Thank you. And to our audience, thank you for watching. See you soon.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.